Executive Director of the National Institute on Retirement Security. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you, Pedro. Glad to be here this morning.
Are people using their retirement funds too early?
You know, what we're seeing is this really big squeeze on the middle class. You know, the middle class incomes have been stagnant, and what's happening to a certain extent is we've always had a certain number of people who haven't saved anything for retirement. About half of the population have nothing saved for retirement. And in fact, now what we're also seeing in a report released just this week is about 1 out of 4 households tapping their savings in their 401k plan to pay for bills like daily expenses or other types of things. And that has some real long-term consequences on retirement security.
About 26%, according to the survey or the group Hello Wallet, 26% are getting into their funds early. 33% of those workers are tapping into their 401ks in their 40s. 75% who breach those the accounts do so because they have basic money management challenges. 8% of those lost their job. 12% more workers tapping their funds since 2008. What do those numbers tell you?
It's a tough situation around a lot of kitchen tables. You know, when you're sitting down trying to figure out how do we pay these bills, and if you've been lucky enough to put away some money in a 401k plan, and you're facing those type of bills and situations, you're trying to say, well, maybe I could tap into my 401k plan, and you're thinking, oh, I'm in my 40s, retirement's 20 years, 25 years off for me. But you know what? You don't have enough time in those 20 to 25 years to really make up the difference. And that's a key thing to think about, is right now you did the right thing. You put the money away in your 401k plan. Compound interest is going to work for you dramatically. You know, we know if somebody puts money in a 401, let's say you put $2,000 a year away in a 401k or an IRA when you're 20 to the time you're 30, that $22,000 will give you like almost $85,000 in interest, even at an interest rate of like 4%. If you then went and saved from the time you were 30 to the time you were 70, or 65, so you're going to save for 35 years, you're going to put away $70,000. You would actually earn less interest on that money because you have less time. So time's on your side, and it is tempting to take that retirement money and help pay for the crisis you face today, but you really need to start thinking about, maybe I need to find a way in my budgeting to get there, because you're going to have some impact.
When it comes to annual retirement accounts, there is about $294 billion sitting in as we speak. About employee contributions equal about $176 billion. Employers' contribution about $118 billion, but early withdrawals targeted about $70 billion. That's about 25%.
Yeah, you know, and it sounds, when you talk about that $1 trillion, it sounds like a lot of money. But when you really come down to it, what is the median amount of money in those assets? It's significantly lower for a household. Federal Reserve tells us, for people who are actually saving, and remember, 50% of the people don't even have a retirement account, but for the people who are saving, they've only got about $44,000. Fidelity told us, you know, that their median account value is about $25,000 at the end of, I guess, the third quarter of 2012. So people don't really have a lot of money in those accounts, but that money ultimately is going to have to last them when they retire for as long as they live, which could be up to 20 years.
Our guest is here to talk about the fact that more of Americans in the United States going into their retirement savings too early, talk about the liabilities because of that. If you want to ask her questions about it, you can do so on our lines. For Democrats, it's 202-585-3880. For Republicans, 202-585-3881. For Independents, 202-585-3882. Send your thoughts on Twitter at C-SPAN WJ as well. At base, what's the penalty for withdrawing early?
You know, if you take your funds out early and you're not disabled and you don't have, you can do that. It's allowable. You're going to have to pay income taxes on those monies when you withdraw them. Plus, in many cases, you'll be paying a 10% penalty. So for somebody who's most of these withdrawals, and this is something else Open Wallet did, are happening at incomes under $50,000. So those people could be even paying equal amounts in tax penalties to what they're paying on their tax liability.
So right off the bat, you're losing a lot of that.
You're losing a lot of it in terms of that, and then you're also losing that potential compounding over the years, which is really hard to make up.
But about the argument, I'll take it out, I'll pay it back. You
can try to pay it back, but again, that illustration that I gave you earlier, those first 10 years or 11 years, if they're early, they're so powerful. They're like the yeast that keeps the retirement savings growing. That actually could give you 65% more income at retirement. If you can't afford to save and you have to pull out your dollars, how are you going to find the money to save, maybe double up your savings to make up that difference? So there's some real consequences that people need to think about. You know, some people just say, don't touch the retirement account if you can help it.
Can you take a loan against your retirement account?
You can take a loan against your retirement account, and then you'd be paying back your loan, and that's probably the preferred thing to do, but even that has some consequences, because we find that about 17% of the people who take out loans end up defaulting on those loans, and then they have a tax liability and the penalty all apply.
So it would be the same as if they just took it out altogether.
Exactly.
First call, Portsmouth, Rhode Island, Gerald, for our guest, Democrats line. Hi. Let me push the button. Sorry, Gerald, before you go too far, start again because I got you late. Go ahead.
Oh, okay. I just had a question for Ms. Oakley.
Yes, Gerald, hi.
That's not the name right. I'm an older person, like 63 years old. Is it too late for me to start an individual retirement account? I mean, I hopefully live for, a few more years. Would you advise that? I'm an independent contractor, basically. I have a farm and rental property, and, I'm thinking of maybe, putting some money in until I'm like 70 years old or so.
I think Thanks so much, Gerald. We talk about the fact of the power of compounding working for younger folks, but I think at this point in time, anything anyone can save is going to be helpful. Every one of us, and you're talking about working to 70, in the type of work you may be doing, especially farming, that could be a pretty intensive type of industry, and you never know when something happens. So I would definitely encourage you to think about starting some type of savings if you haven't done anything. Also think about, are there other after-tax savings, even if you max out in your 401k plan, where you can put money away. And that's one of the things that, unfortunately, too many other people don't do, is they don't save for that rainy day that might happen.
Sasha looks at the other side of it, asking how many 401ks are paying fees which total $100,000 over the lifetime of a plan?
Fees is a real important part of 401k plans, and there have been studies talking about, again, you have to be careful when you invest your money in a 401k plan. You want to look at the fee structure. If your fees, if you have a difference of about 100 basis points, could actually make a difference of about 25% less income when you retire. So you want to make sure as you're doing your 401k plan, you're using investments that have reasonable fees and have, a good balance of investment performance.
Is there a guideline of what a reasonable fee is?
It depends. There's a lot of differences depending on the risk in the fund. Some of the index funds for people, especially if I think they have small amounts, you can get a good balance of the portfolio. There's a lot of new things called target date funds, which help people. One of the other choices that happens in 401k plans is people don't know where to invest. And we've seen with this stock market, an awful lot of younger investors become more conservative because they've seen their 401k accounts, maybe when they change jobs and they get a check, actually get less money than what they put in because the market went down. And so they're reluctant to put money into the stock market. But a target date fund sort of looks at you over your lifetime and says, well, if you're younger, you can take more risk. If you're older, we'll move you into something more conservative. Those give you a good spectrum of investment, and many of them are available at reasonable cost, but they still cost more money than what you would get in the old traditional pension.
Tampa, Florida up next. Jeannie, Independent Line, hi.
Good morning. How are you?
Fine, thank you. Go right ahead.
I have a comment for Ms. Oakley and a question. I'm retired. I am able to survive on my Social Security and retirement savings, but I have a lot of friends, and I'm sure there's millions of the early tier of baby boomers out there that lost millions in the stock market. But at 70 and a half, you have to start taking from your annuities, so forth. And they're still trying to make up what they've lost. Is there any chance that that rule might change to where you can push it further back? I don't want to start taking money out at 70 and a half because I don't need it. But with the lifespan being so long now for a lot of people, I certainly may need it further down the road.
Jeannie, before you go, tell us a little bit about your strategy and the fact that you don't have to tap into your funds yet.
Well, I put 15% of my pay in my 401k. I couldn't do that in the beginning, but as soon as I could, then I did. My home is paid for. My vehicle is paid for. And I live a simple lifestyle.
Thank you, Jeannie.
Jeannie, you know, you're absolutely right. You're really in a unique situation where, you know, your Social Security and your savings are able to keep you in the lifestyle in which you've been living.
And she's talking bank account savings, I'm assuming, or some type of savings.
Some type of, but she's also talking about putting away 15% in an IRA or a 401k plan, and that's a pretty substantial contribution, and she's done that. She's done the hard work, and she's able to reap those rewards. You know, one of the things that just came out this week, the AARP and the Urban Institute released a report, and one of the things that was really disturbing for older Americans, I think, and what's coming down the pike, is they suggested that if the trends continue the way they are, we will see 1 out of 3 seniors fall from middle class to low income. And for people between the ages of 45 and 54, we will actually see almost 4 out of 10, 37%, fall from middle income to low income because of the market and not being able to make up for those losses. So your point about can we push back the amount of when people can take out their 401k savings, I think that's something that Congress has looked at. There have been proposals on that. One of the problems is, of course, in today's environment where revenue is scarce for the federal government, they're looking for every choice. The more we push that back, that does have a really high revenue loss figure. So it's one of those, there's a lot of things that we need to do to really help Americans save that will cost us tax revenue today, but will really give us a better America in the future. And we need to start thinking about that. We probably need to think about, you know, we talk about the American dream. Well, 3/4 of the Americans told us that they found that, like, losing traditional pensions, the type of pension that, you know, you worked at an employer and they gave you an income for the rest of your life, losing that has put the American dream at risk for 3/4 of the American people. And so one of the things that we think we need to think about is how do we find ways to get more people saving, to get them saving more money, and having features that look like retirement plans that give them a guaranteed paycheck. You know, the real thing you want to do when you retire is you don't want to necessarily get a bucket of money. You need to have a paycheck to replace the paycheck you're going to lose.
A viewer asked about if there's exceptions that allow for distribution of 401ks without a penalty.
There are. If you're disabled, if you die, you can take the money out without a penalty. But death and disability are really that. Sometimes Congress has, in economic situations, made other special exemptions if you're long-term unemployed or something like that. But by and large, you know, if you're just taking it out to help pay for some of your bills, unless they're like exceedingly high medical bills, you probably will have to pay that 10% penalty.
I learned that Congress created the 401k?
Congress created the 401k plans back in 1978. It was done really to be a supplement for those traditional pensions. And what has happened is over the last 30 to 40 years, the retirement security risks have shifted. And so the defined contribution plans have really become more of the predominant plan for private sector employees.
Our guest is the Executive Director of the National Institute on Retirement Security. She's Diane Oakley. Our next call is Erie, Pennsylvania. Jim on our Republican line.
Hi, Diane. I'm a financial services professional. I've been in financial services for 14 years since I retired from the military. And really what I've seen in the ERISA regulations is heavy skewing and heavy favoritism towards employers in qualified plans. How are we supposed to help protect the average American and the average worker and get them to save more money for retirement when businesses are using the regulations under ERISA to carve out large pieces in cash balance pension plans and other types of qualified plans, plus get a tax deduction for doing it, and at the same time not helping their workers anywhere near as far as they could or should, especially if we're going to give them a tax deduction.
Caller, if you can define ERISA, please.
Oh, it's the Retirement Income Security Act, which was the rules and regulations on the Department of Labor that govern 401k plans and other qualified plans. Diane Oakley is well familiar with it.
Thank you, caller. Ms. Oakley.
Hi, Jim. Thank you very much for that, and thank you for defining what ERISA is for everybody. You know, it's actually almost been 40 years since that landmark legislation on pensions was passed after several major corporations went bankrupt and employees lost their pension. So it provides a guarantee of a pension income for people. But it does have a lot of opportunity to game the system. I think we're working on, you know, Congress, the Treasury is identifying those type of situations when they can. But we do need to sometimes look back at laws and say, are we losing something because of that? And that's part of the legislative process, as we know here in Washington. We've looked at, you know, Senator Harkin recently released a white paper on pensions, and he was suggesting there might be a way that we ought to be looking at pensions in a different way, especially one of the places we know where people find it hard to save is when they're in a small employer. A lot of small employers can't afford to offer their employees a pension. And so what they end up doing is those employees have nothing there that comes right out of their paycheck. It's really easy to save when the money comes out of your paycheck. And that's one of the real benefits of 401k plans. So we want to find ways that employers can provide plans for employees, but those small employers may find it better if there's some way that they can pool their resources together and come up with some other entity that can take some of that risk and help their employees.
I've heard you say 401k, I've heard you say IRA. What are the differences between the two?
A 401k plan is a plan sponsored by your employer, and you get that through your workplace. The money typically will come right out of your paycheck and go right into your 401k plan. If you're in education, you might have a 403b plan if you're a teacher. If you're an IRA is an individual retirement account, and that's an account for someone who's self-employed. That's where you have to actually take the money and go to the bank or go to the financial institution, make that contribution. So if you're like an independent contractor, like our other caller, that's where you are going to go and you're going to get that contribution. You're probably not going to get a match like you would in a 401k plan from your employer.
I've heard of a Roth IRA. What's that?
A Roth IRA is a slightly different product. It's the same. It's a retirement security product. The benefit of a traditional IRA is the money goes into that plan before you pay taxes. A Roth IRA, the money goes in after taxes, but it's treated differently when it comes out. When it comes out of a Roth IRA, your money is not taxable to you as income. So you have a choice of, do you want to pay the taxes today because you think the tax rates are the lowest they might be, and they might go up in the future, or would you rather get that extra, let's say 15 or 25% by not paying taxes on that money, go into your account and work for you and grow over time? And I think a lot of people today are saying maybe younger people might be more interested in a Roth IRA because of, you know, the sort of the fluidness of where tax rate's going to be in another 10 years.
Rockwell City, Iowa. Dale, Democrats line.
Hello?
You're on, sir. Go ahead.
Yeah, my question is